"You've had a good run, Alex, but it's time for fresh eyes." Those were the exact words my manager said while sliding the transfer notice across the desk. I stared at it for a second, not angry, not surprised, just tired. "My name is Alex Kane. I'm 41. For 10 years, I've worked as lead security supervisor at Delta Freight, a high-risk cargo yard on the edge of the city. Trained 3 full teams from scratch. Never missed a day. Never lost a shipment. Never filed a single complaint. But apparently loyalty doesn't mean much when the new CEO wants to play family games. His nephew, Ethan, just graduated from some private college with a degree in business operations. Never worked security a day in his life. Yet here we were. He was walking into my job and I was being shifted to the night shift like I was some old, outdated lock on a warehouse door. "It's not personal," my manager said. "It's just family." I didn't argue. I just nodded and took the paper. Because here's the thing. In security, silence isn't weakness. It's observation. Ethan didn't know what this yard required. He didn't understand the rotation schedule, the blind spots between camera zones, the specific days certain trucks attracted attention. He thought it was just about walking around with a radio and a clipboard. And what none of them realized was that I already knew what was about to go wrong. Ethan walked in on his first day looking like he'd come to pitch a startup, not run security for a 24-hour freight yard. No gear, no steel boots, just white sneakers and a tablet he barely knew how to use. He walked around greeting the guys like he was their new coach, tried making jokes with the forklift drivers, took selfies near the main gate, and skipped the 6 a.m. site log like it was optional. By 9 a.m., 2 trailers hadn't been logged, and one of the gates was still unlocked. "Is this normal now?" I overheard one of the guys whisper. I didn't answer. Just clocked in for my night shift and kept quiet. Ethan didn't take over my job. He inherited responsibility without understanding the risk that came with it. He didn't know how critical the north camera blind zone was. Didn't realize that Warehouse 3's motion sensors had a 2-minute delay. Didn't even read the last 6 incident reports I'd left behind because he had new systems in mind. What he called streamlining, I called cutting corners. So I started keeping my own logs, not out of spite, but survival, timestamps, rotation skips, access gaps. Because I wasn't just working the night shift anymore. I was watching the fallout form in real time. And when it hit, I'd be the only one holding proof. By Thursday, I started noticing a pattern. Ethan was clocking out early, 3 days in a row. Said he had upper-level tasks to catch up on from home. The shifts he left behind? Sloppy. Twice the side lot was left unlocked overnight. A third time, the south camera feed froze for almost 90 minutes. That night, I logged into our system and saw something that stopped me cold. An override attempt on camera 4, the one covering the northeast blind zone behind Warehouse 2. It failed, but it was logged. Someone tried to bypass it. I flagged the event and backed it up to a secure flash drive. Ethan never mentioned it in his shift notes. Never filed a report. He probably didn't even notice it. But I did, because I've spent 10 years treating every small glitch like a future headline. That same night, a van showed up at 2:13 a.m., unscheduled. No manifest, no call ahead. I logged it manually, snapped a photo, and added it to my backup records. It left 14 minutes later without unloading, and that's when I knew. This wasn't just mismanagement anymore. This was setup, and Ethan was either too proud or too ignorant to see it. Me, I saw the pattern forming, and I knew I'd be the one explaining it after everything went wrong. It was 2:07 a.m. when I got the ping. Motion sensors, Warehouse 3. I dropped my thermos and bolted from the security booth. The east gate was wide open. No sign of forced entry. Just unlocked. Inside, pallets were split open, boxes missing, boot prints across the floor. Whoever did this wasn't in a hurry. They knew exactly what they were after. I hit the panic code. Backup arrived in under 4 minutes. By 3 a.m., we had a number. $200,000 in stolen inventory. Gone. No camera footage. Ethan had left earlier that night. Again. And the kicker? Camera 4 had gone down again. Right during the break-in window. Except this time, They didn't know I had a secret backup rigged to a personal hard drive. I pulled the footage. There they were. Two men, no masks, walking in through the blind zone with Ethan's employee badge used at 1:58 a.m. on the service entrance door. They bypassed everything like they had a tour guide. By sunrise, corporate was already in full damage control. They called me in, not as a suspect, not even as backup, but as the only person who still had a grip on the truth. And I hadn't even started showing them what I had saved. At 2:12 p.m., my work phone rang. "Alex Kane," a voice asked, "we need you upstairs. Now." 3 senior managers, 1 regional director, and a company lawyer were waiting when I entered the room. No small talk, just a folder slid across the table. "What do you know about the security breach Saturday morning?" I opened my flash drive and plugged it into their laptop. "Everything." Click. I showed them the system logs, the override attempt on camera 4, the gap in patrol logs, the unauthorized badge use, Ethan's, and finally the footage. They watched in silence. Then one asked, "Why didn't you report this earlier?" "I did," I said. "Check my HR reports. I warned you 2 weeks ago." They flipped through the physical file I handed them. Printed emails, time-stamped memos, even copies of the shift rotation plan Ethan ignored. Another manager leaned forward. "This is airtight." Number. "This is what happens," I said calmly, "when you replace 10 years of experience with someone's nephew." The lawyer closed the folder slowly. "Thank you, Mr. Kane. We'll take it from here." I stood, turned to leave. But just before I opened the door, the director said, "Alex, we might need you to step back in." I didn't turn around. Not yet. By the next morning, Ethan was panicking. He wasn't taking calls. He wasn't at the site. But his version of the story, it was spreading fast. He told the regional team that legacy systems failed, that the breach happened because I'd left outdated patrol schedules and didn't modernize the response protocols. He even said the backup system must have been tampered with. Funny thing was, I agreed. The system had been tampered with, but not by me. By the time I arrived that morning, 2 investigators were already pulling badge access reports. Ethan's name was all over the logs. He claimed he lost his badge the week before, except no one reported it, and the timing didn't match. His last manual login, 10 minutes after the robbery started. I watched from the side as he stumbled through explanations, voice cracking, sweat soaking through his collar. When the lead investigator looked at me and asked, "Did you alter any part of the security logs?" I said, "No. I saved them." I passed him my flash drive again, with additional files I hadn't shown yet. System integrity reports, login timestamps, and a checklist I wrote 3 weeks ago of everything Ethan failed to do. The room fell quiet. Nobody defended him, not even his uncle, the CEO. That's when I knew the shift had begun. They weren't questioning if I was right anymore. They were realizing they'd bet on the wrong person and left their assets in the hands of someone who thought a title could replace training. By Tuesday afternoon, Delta Freight's corporate team had gone into silent panic. No memos were sent, no public statement. But behind the scenes, you could feel it. A cleanup job was underway. I got called back into the same boardroom. This time, Ms. Carter, the regional director, was already standing when I entered. She didn't waste time. "Effective immediately," she said. "You're being reinstated as lead of on-site operations." I stayed quiet. She added, "Ethan has resigned. The CEO has stepped down temporarily. We'll be restructuring things and your guidance will be needed." I didn't smile, didn't gloat. I just nodded once. "You'll have full authority to retrain the staff and resecure the facility. Consider this your territory again." I walked back out to the site that afternoon. Nothing had changed physically. Same fences, same booths, same patrol routes. But everyone knew the dynamic had flipped. Staff nodded as I passed. No words, just respect. I checked the cameras. Every angle clean. Backup feeds humming. The silence felt right again. I erased Ethan's schedule and rewrote the rotation from scratch. I wasn't looking for redemption. I was putting the system back together before it collapsed again under someone else's ego. And this time, they weren't watching me out of pity. They were watching because they finally realized I'd never stopped doing the job. When I stepped into my old office, it still smelled like ink toner and cold coffee. The dry erase board still had my original rotation schedule faintly marked beneath Ethan's scribbles. I erased his edits, redrew the entire operation layout, then sat in the chair I hadn't touched in over a month, and for the first time in weeks, I breathed. I didn't need fanfare, didn't want apologies. What I wanted was order. I opened the terminal, pulled up access logs, reviewed the last 14 days. Ethan hadn't even checked half the motion trigger alerts that came through. He ignored one at the north exit twice. A rolling gate jammed 6 times. Never filed a repair. He wasn't doing security. He was performing it. The staff knew it too. By 4 p.m., both junior guards came by my door, asked if I was officially back. I said yes. They nodded and returned to post with a different energy. Less confused, more focused. Sometimes leadership isn't about yelling instructions. It's about consistency so tight that others fall in step just to keep up. I reopened the archived risk reports I wrote over the past year. I wasn't updating a broken system. I was restoring what worked, while quietly removing the ego that almost destroyed it. And this time, I wasn't defending my job. I was designing a standard no shortcut could ever replace. The call came the next evening. Block number. But I knew the voice. Alex, it's Nolan, the CEO. His tone, deflated, dry. Nothing like the sharp executive who once shook my hand and praised family loyalty. I didn't think it would go this way, he said. He's my sister's son. I was trying to give him a shot. And you gave him my seat, I said. He sighed. You're right, I messed up. I just didn't want this to get ugly. It didn't have to, I replied, but you made it about who, not what. There was a pause. You going to push this? Go public? Sue? I leaned back in my chair, watching the site monitors rotate. No, I said, I'm not after damage. I'm after structure. You're a better man than me, he muttered. I didn't respond. He hung up quietly and I set the phone down. I didn't need revenge, not when his silence said everything. At the end of the month, HR invited me to speak to a room of new hires. Orientation talk, they called it. 15 minutes tops. I agreed. I stood in front of a dozen fresh faces, some young, some older, all wondering what I'd say. I didn't talk about the break-in, didn't mention Ethan, didn't even talk about my title. I told them what I wish someone had told me in year 1. This job rewards silence, not showboating. It rewards patience, not panic. You want to lead? Build records, keep receipts, never cut corners, even when no one's watching. Someone in the back raised their hand. What do you do if they replace you anyway? I didn't hesitate. You prepare harder, and when they come running back, you don't gloat. You fix it and leave a paper trail behind that proves you always knew what you were doing. The room nodded. Some wrote it down. That was enough. Because the real win wasn't getting the job back. It was earning the kind of respect no relative could inherit. 3 weeks after the robbery, Delta Freight brought in an external audit team. They came in sharp. 3 consultants, briefcases, tablets, ready to tear apart everything Ethan touched. I wasn't nervous. I was ready. They asked for access logs, shift reports, badge activity, and system diagnostics. I handed over organized binders, a hard drive of surveillance backup, and a folder titled Ignored Risk Reports. One of the auditors flipped through the pages. You wrote all of this? 10 years of site history, I said. Nothing I haven't already submitted before. They paused when they hit my flagged email, dated 2 weeks before the robbery, outlining 3 major security concerns Ethan had failed to address. Did he ever respond? Nope, never even opened it. They didn't say much after that. For 2 days, they combed through the mess Ethan left behind. On the final morning, the lead auditor approached me near the security booth. We're recommending full procedural reinstatement of your original systems. Your documentation saved this company from a worse disaster. I nodded. Thank you. He lowered his voice. You're the reason this place is still standing. I didn't smile. I just handed him a final thumb drive. Updated patrol model. Designed it last night. It's better. He took it without a word. That moment didn't need noise, just clarity. Ethan's name wasn't mentioned again in meetings. But I heard things. Rumors from a contact in HR. Whispers from site techs who followed his social media. He'd moved to Austin, deleted all his posts, updated his LinkedIn with some vague title, Consultant in Logistics and Innovation. But the real story followed him. People in the industry talk, especially after a public inventory loss hits the boardroom. And when those investigators finished their report, it didn't just stay internal. It leaked quietly, professionally, but enough to make sure Ethan Walker's name meant caution in every hiring pipeline. I didn't spread it, didn't need to. The paper trail I left behind did the talking. Someone once asked me if I felt bad for him. Because you don't get to pretend experience doesn't matter and then cry when it does. You don't get to cut corners, then blame the blueprints when the structure collapses. He gambled with other people's work, and when it backfired, he left the mess for someone else to fix. Only this time, I didn't clean it up to save him. I cleaned it up so he'd never be allowed near something that fragile again. I wasn't going to let ego run this place again, so I hired 2 junior officers, Marcus and Eli. Both sharp, both eager. Fresh eyes, but no shortcuts in their questions. On their second week, I pulled them aside. This job isn't about power, I said. It's about process. You follow the routine, or you leave holes behind. They nodded. I handed them laminated copies of my old shift rotation sheet. Then I asked them to build a better version of it. They stayed up late working on it, submitted something new by morning, tight, smart, and efficient. I gave it one glance and approved it. From now on, I said, this is ours. They smiled, but Eli hesitated. Why do you still do this, sir, after everything? I looked at the monitors. Because one day someone will try this again. Someone will get lazy, skip steps, rely on charm instead of caution. And when that happens, I want people in this chair who don't flinch. They got quiet after that, not out of fear, out of respect. That's how I knew they'd lead one day, because they didn't want the title. They wanted the weight of the job that came with it. The envelope came quietly, plain, no logo, just my name handwritten in the corner. Inside was a letter from HR, simple, typed, stamped. As part of our formal leadership review, your personnel file has been amended. Your previous demotion has been removed from record. You are classified as permanent strategic staff. Thank you for your service. There was a sticky note attached, handwritten. Some people talk. You delivered. See, I placed the letter flat on my desk, stared at it for a long moment. I didn't need it framed, didn't even need it, period, but I kept it. Not for proof, for principle. It was a quiet reversal of everything they'd done, and it meant that from here forward, no one could rewrite my story without my evidence getting in their way. You don't always get apologies in this world, but sometimes you get respect in return. And that lasts longer than any temporary title ever could. At the next quarterly conference, I was asked to give a 5-minute speech. It was the same group that once ignored every memo I sent, but now they were listening. I didn't prepare a speech. I didn't need to. I stood at the front and said this. They gave my seat to someone with a stronger connection. But when the alarms went off and the cameras went dark, they didn't run to connections. They ran to competence. Don't let the silence fool you. People like me, we don't chase noise, we build systems. And when the building shakes, we're the ones still standing. The room fell into silence. Then the clapping came, slow, then steady. Afterwards, one director approached me and said, "That line, we're putting that in the training deck." I nodded, because I didn't say it for applause. I said it for every quiet worker who was told they were replaceable until they weren't. It came in my email. Subject line, Story of Quiet Leadership, Feature Request. A writer from Security and Systems Journal wanted to interview me, said he'd heard about what happened at Delta Freight and was working on a piece about leadership under pressure. At first I ignored it. Then Marcus came by my office later that day, saw the email on my screen. "You should do it," he said. "Guys like me need to know how people like you hold the line when no one's watching." That made me pause. I called the writer back. We spoke for 40 minutes. I told him the truth. Not the gossip version. I told him about being replaced, staying quiet, documenting everything, and letting the facts do the talking. No bitterness, no drama, just the real mechanics of what happened. When the article published 2 weeks later, I didn't even know it went live until my inbox filled up. A dozen messages, some from old coworkers, others from people I'd never met. The headline, "The man who let his work speak louder than the CEO's nephew." I didn't need that attention, but I wasn't ashamed of it either. Sometimes silence builds the loudest legacy. One afternoon, I stopped by Delta Freight unannounced. I didn't need to. Marcus had it covered, but curiosity made me park, swipe in, and take a walk around the lot. Everything looked sharp, cameras humming, guard shifts rotating like clockwork. The north gate, the one that failed under Ethan's watch, was locked tight with a second deadbolt I didn't even install. Inside, Eli greeted me. "Didn't expect to see you." "Didn't expect to stop in," I said. We walked the floor. I asked nothing, just listened. Finally, Marcus joined us. "Feels good here," I said. He nodded. "We just followed your system." I laughed. "Nah, you improved it." I left after 15 minutes. Nothing dramatic. No handshakes or announcements. Just the satisfaction of knowing the thing I built outlived the people who tried to strip it away. And that's what real legacy is. Not noise. Structure that holds, even when you walk away. 3 months after Ethan disappeared from company memory, another email hit internal comms. Leadership update. Effective immediately, Delta Freight has appointed Jennifer Cardenas as CEO. She came up through logistics. No family name, no ego. She earned her way through hard work, field results, and listening when it mattered. And I knew right then, that era of favorites and fast-track failures? Over. No farewell note from Nolan, no statement from Ethan. Just a clean break. Jennifer called me that same afternoon. "I've read every report," she said. "You weren't just right. You were early." "I was prepared," I replied. "Exactly why I need you at the table moving forward." I agreed, not because I needed the title, but because I needed to protect the culture I rebuilt, the one that rewards process over politics. We ended the call with 2 words neither Nolan nor Ethan ever said: "Thank you." A week later, I got a message from a woman named Tamika, a security manager in Ohio. Her message was short: "Read your article. I've been in your shoes. They called me dramatic when I raised flags. I almost quit, but your story reminded me, evidence is louder than emotion. I'm staying, and I'm documenting." I stared at the screen for a moment longer than I should have, because that made every report I'd ever typed worth it. Every ignored memo, every skipped meeting, every time I bit my tongue when I knew I was right. I sent her a reply. "Good. Keep receipts. Keep your cool. Let your facts whisper until the fallout makes them shout." She replied, "That might be the best advice I've gotten all year." And just like that, I knew I'd done more than fix a broken yard. I'd lit a match for someone else in the dark. I still walk to work most days. The new office is smaller, cleaner, no plaques on the wall. Just the sound of systems running the way they should. I don't get asked much about Ethan anymore, but once in a while someone new will hear the story and say, "So, you got your revenge?" I always shake my head. "No," I say, "I got something better." They ask what that is, and I tell them, I got proven right in silence. I got my job back, my name cleared, and my system restored. And now, I train others to do it better. The revenge they expected, it was just preparation. The win, it was never leaving in the first place. They handed my seat to someone with connections, then begged me to rebuild what he broke. I didn't gloat. I just made sure it wouldn't break again.